Okay, so a couple years ago I was hiking and I scraped my shin on a fallen tree trunk. While taking care of the wound, I remembered to keep the area moist, but I didn't remember why. So I went back to my notes on wound care. And with that said, here are some things to consider to allow your wound and minor cuts to heal faster with minimal and unnecessary scar tissue. So the first thing that you want to do is keep the area clean and moist daily. Keeping the area clean and moist daily does two things. Cleaning the wound keeps the area from being infected and gives the wound a chance to breathe a little bit. After you clean the wound daily, you also want to keep the area moisturized. And keeping the area moisturized prevents the formation of scar tissues and eschar. And then there's something to be said about the additional barrier from the moisturizer that prevents bacteria and infection. The other reason why you want to moisturize that area is because it also traps the good nutrients that helps the healing rate of the wound. Essentially, you don't want it to dry out by when the wound is exposed. So having a barrier on top of the wound traps those nutrients to allow the wound to heal. So how do you keep the area clean? And this is purely assuming that the cut and wound is minor. You want to keep the area clean by washing it with a lukewarm water and mild soap. This actually keeps the funky little germs out and gets rid of debris and dead skin around the wound. Interesting enough, it's actually not necessary to use an antibacterial ointment if you're keeping the area clean daily. And this is coming from the American Academy of Dermatology Association. After cleaning the wound, you might ask, how do you keep the area moist? You want to keep the area moist by covering it with Vaseline, and this allows the Vaseline to trap all the nutritional goodness in the wound to allow the wound to heal faster. After applying Vaseline, you want to cover the area with a sterile band-aid. If your wound is large enough, consider covering the area with a sterile gauze. So after doing this daily, you might ask, so how long should you keep the area clean and moist for? Well, if you're smart, and you are smart, you will do this till the wound essentially closes. And this should take anywhere from 3 to 20 days, depending on how big a cut or wound you sustained. So what do you need to do after the wound closes? There are a lot of credible studies that actually shows that once the wound heals, the new tissues that cause the healing of the wound never truly returns to 100% of its strength. The best it can get to is about 70 to 80% of its original or previous strength. To make sure that the wound returns to 70 to 80% of its original strength, it may be a good idea to massage the area for about a minute daily to break down the scar tissues after the wound closes, of course. This will allow the wound or the area that just healed to be a little bit more elastic. You're breaking down the scar tissue, make it a little bit more elastic so it gets closer to that 70 to 80% of its original strength. Massaging that area will also be useful to help reset things to normalize your sensitivity to pain and perception in that area. Interesting enough, and this is one that I actually didn't know, using a sunscreen after the wound closes, and you want to use a sunscreen around SPF of 30 or higher, will help reduce discoloration around the area where the wound was at, and it will also help reduce scar tissues as well. So now the role of nutrition in wound healing is actually very important. So if you want to cover all your bases, make sure that your nutrition and diet includes the following. You want to include protein, you want to include B12, you want to include folic acid, iron, and vitamin C, vitamin A, and arginine. I'm going to list all of this down as well, and feel free to screenshot this if you would like. And that's it. That's all you need to do to make sure that your wound heals appropriately and comes back to at least 70 to 80% of its original strength. Thank you for watching this video. I would appreciate a like if you found this really helpful, and more importantly, and this is very important, I would love to see you back here again as I'm trying to build an awesome community that cares about their well-being and the human body. I'll see you in a few days.